We're done.
And we are rolling. There we go.
Live.
All right, everybody, what's going on? I am here with Ira and Arlen, the other two directors, the other two sort of owners, members, whatever you want to call them, of the Nameless Toy Company. And we are going to chat a little bit about Space Zombies from Mars. The Kickstarter goes live March 1st, which is not enough days from now. We've still got work to do, but you know, it's gonna go live March 1st. We sort of committed to that date, and we're ready to go. It's just, you know, the nerves and the anxiety of like, but is it perfect? Anyways, good to have you guys. Good to have you guys, and let's start by sort of kind of going round table. What do you do? What is your sort of role sort of within this? Arlen, why don't you go first?
My role? Designer, sculptor, basically, I guess. Creator,
I think, is probably a good... Yeah, I think that's a good that encapsulates kind of the creative, you know, guy.
Yeah, painter as well, 3D printer. I don't know.
You're a 3D printer?
I'm a robot. Yeah. Yeah, I guess more creator. Yeah.
Cool. Ira, I think co-creator in a lot of respects. But do you want to sort of describe your involvement, your role?
Yeah, I would say I'm the lore master. So Arlen and I come up with the ideas, and I put them down into stories and words, basically.
Nice. Awesome. And I do boring stuff on the I do the cutting and pasting of all these good ideas onto Kickstarter pages, and I fill out legal paperwork, and that's kind of what I do. So
and we
all right.
need you for that.
You're the glue.
That's right.
It's you know, we all and it works well. I mean, we all kind of have our part to play, and I think, well, I mean, literally, without the three of us, none of this works, right? Like it would be a two-sided chair. Mm-hmm. It would just not work. So anyways, let's get more specifically into Space Zombies. How did the idea for Space Zombies from Mars originate? Where did it spawn from?
Arlen, you want to start with where you
I honestly always loved the visual of the skull, broken face mask, astronaut floating through space. Mm-hmm. That's just something I've just always loved, and I kind of wanted to expand on my skills a little bit, so I started designing an action figure. It wasn't actually necessarily meant to become an actual action figure. It was just a design that I sat down to do, because I would always like draw quick concepts and then go straight to sculpting and flesh it out. So I wanted to be able to design it as if I gave it to a sculptor. Would they be able to sculpt it? Mm-hmm. So I designed it that way. I was working on it, and then Ira came over. We're gonna have our first jam as our band.
Yeah,
and I showed it to him. And then you go from there, Ira.
Well, we basically, we were having our first, I mean, Arlen and I have been in bands since we were able to like breathe, basically. We're, you know, we do a lot of things together, but we haven't for a lot of years, and we decided we wanted to start a band again. And we got together for our first sort of jam as this new band. But the problem was that Arlen had just got this adorable little puppy. And like the day before, he got this beautiful little guy, and so we were gonna jam, but there's this little puppy, and he fell asleep on my chest, and we were trying to figure out like how are we gonna like make our music? What's our music gonna be about? What are we gonna do? And because this puppy fell asleep on my chest, and of course we're both like, we don't want to wake up the cute little guy. We said, well, what if so he was showing me these drawings, or I
Mhm.
can't remember what form it was, but he was showing me the sort of first ideas of the space zombies, and I was like, well, what if our music is like based on this, and we basically write an album that tells the story of the space zombies from Mars. And I don't think we'd
Mhm.
had that title at that time, but
That was the
um,
night you came up with that title.
yeah, there we
I
go.
was like, what should I call this? And you're like, Space Zombies from Mars. And I was like, I love it.
So
Yeah,
if people haven't sort of seen, we've kind of we're sort of setting the stage where we've established that most of the names that we're going to come up with going forward are just on the nose. It is what it is. The Nameless Toy Company came out of not being able to think of a name. Space
exactly.
Zombies from Mars was like, what do we call these space zombies from Mars? It's like, well, there it is. That's the title.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Anyways,
but
sorry, I just want to quickly finish
of course, yeah.
my idea here. So as we came up with the idea, and as I had this puppy sleeping on my chest, we talked out the entire album
Mhm.
of
And story arc.
the
Yeah.
story arc of Space Zombies from Mars, and we stayed true to it for the most
Mhm.
part. Recording for about 2 years, we worked on that record.
I
Very,
just want
very
to
cool.
note, though, originally I thought it was the dumbest idea ever. But because it was so dumb, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Because no one's going to know. You
There,
don't
Yeah.
have to tell them.
Well,
I
our
mean, there
band,
Everyone
is.
knows now.
everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
But there's something fun in that, though. You know what I mean? Like the fact that it's so kind of like kind of dumb, but like that's why it's so fun. Is it's sort of like, well,
Yeah.
how come nobody's ever done this before? It's like
Yeah.
it's so obvious that it should have been done, kind of thing. But it's like, but nobody has. So like, here
Yeah.
it is. Now, okay, so Arlen, you come up with the designs, and then just through sort of a stroke of luck, Ira, you and Arlen sort of come up with the concept of the album, which is effectively sort of a soundtrack for this lore. Was the comic book just a no-brainer then? To like, okay, we got the lore, it's part of the music, we're doing the figures. Like the comic book just makes sense because we're coming up with the story. That's going to have a soundtrack. We may as well write down the story.
Yeah,
Well,
pretty much.
for me, it's like that sort of the great triangle of like in with the 80s toy companies, they always had a cartoon, a comic book, and action figures. And we
Mhm.
already had two things that worked really well together. So the third
Mhm.
one, yeah, was a no-brainer for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Can we get into some of the comic book? What were the sort of touch points for inspiration for the world that you kind of built? Did you kind of come up with a story arc and then build out the world, or did the world kind of just build itself as you were kind of going through the plot points?
You talking to me or Ira specifically? Is Ira
Uh,
frozen?
I think Iris frozen.
Do you
So
want me to take over?
we may jump from here to where Ira unfreezes.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. He might jump back in. So
Yeah. I mean, basically the way I we would sit down over beers and discuss basically the elements that I was working on. So the elements that I was working on was breaking it down to factions. So there was like the
Mhm.
military, the medical. I wanted to have these specific visuals for each one and wanted to give them specific accessories to go with it as well.
Mhm.
Um, and then I went to him, told him these are all the things that I want. We had the story arc that we worked out together, written up. There was some couple of things that I was like, we can't change this. Like this is already part of the toy. I'm not
Right.
changing that. We need to write around this. And then he kind of went off and wrote it. Basically came back and I had a few notes, went back, changed a few things, and yeah, basically how it came together from my point of view anyways.
Very cool.
But
Can you guys hear me? Oh, there I am.
Yes.
yeah, you're back.
Fuck, sorry, that was such a rookie mistake. My phone died.
Yeah. That's
Called it.
exactly what we figured. We were like, it's either something catastrophic has happened or his phone has died. So that's all good. But you're back. We're good to go. Arlen,
Just gotta get a good angle here.
Arlen just finished sort of explaining, some of the sort of how you guys came up with the sort of plot overall.
All the fun stuff. Damn.
No, we haven't gotten
No.
into any of the specifics. That was just sort of like that, as he was designing the toys, he was saying, here's the touch points that we need to have in the story because of the toys.
Right.
But do you want to tell us a little bit more about the missions? So can we talk about Red Dust and then a little bit about Red Dust 2?
Okay, yeah. Sorry, this light is just driving me nuts. There we go. Okay. Well,
Red Dust is classified.
Yeah, I can't talk about Red Dust. You're actually not allowed to talk about it. It's the first mission to Mars. It was the first crew that went to Mars. And as far as anybody knows, they never made it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we know.
Mm-hmm. And so, as a result of that, Red Dust 2 was sent on a mission to sort of figure that out / sort of try to complete the mission.
Yeah, they're basically there to colonize Mars. Basically to try and figure out how to live there. And Red Dust 2 makes it. And the story that we are hearing, and the story that unfolds in the comic and on the record, although it's in a different way, is them making it to Mars. So and seeing what happens there.
Now, as far as seeing what happens there, I think a lot of people, when we revealed the render for Spike Spectre, a lot of people were like, "What's going on in this picture?" And it was on Toy Collector magazine cover. He had the mask on, and it is a mask. Like, it's a mask that is over top of a face.
Well, is it a mask or is it a crown?
Go on.
Well, it's are we doing, I guess we're doing spoilers. So it's a crown.
Don't give it all away, but we do want people to sort of want to know more. But
yeah,
I think
it's a magical item.
Okay.
That basically we say magic, but it's left there by left on Mars, and Spike, basically his reason for going to Mars, and he was part of the original Red Dust mission, is that he wanted that crown. And it was left on Mars by someone or something.
Now, to sort of go a little bit beyond that point without giving too much away, do you want to give a little bit of backstory related to these zombies? Are these sort of the typical zombies that people will know, or is there a little bit of a twist here? Is this like, oh, you get bitten and then you become a zombie, or is there something more at work?
I mean, well, Arlen, you want to answer some of that?
Sure. It's a tough one without giving too much away.
Without giving too much away, I know, but everybody's been asking. People are literally messaging me and they're like, "Tell me the lore," and I'm like, "I will not. I cannot. I'm not allowed to." And so, I mean, I want people to sort of see this and go like, "I'm down. I want to know more. I want to hear more. I want to see that comic book," and I'm excited for where this goes. So, what are the what are the sort of nuggets of sort of essence that people will need to sort of get into this?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Ira, you got to help me with this one. I can't just do it.
Okay, well, they're basically your super classic zombie. They're like yeah, you get bitten, they don't move too fast, they're not too smart. They like some classic sort of zombie stuff is like, there's a zombie in a room and it's just like walking against the wall because it doesn't know how to get out or something. But it like I
It's
actually
my dog,
don't
by the way.
that cute little dog. I don't watch zombie movies. I'm not they kind of honestly they kind of scare me. I'm dead serious. I don't watch zombie movies. I've read a few zombie comic books. Like Arlen gave me a zombie comic book, and I read it, and I was like, I think it was called Revival or something, and I was just like, I can't do this. Like, let's turn the lights on in the house.
What I will say is like the background that I know, there's like a little bit more going on though, and I think that's I think people want to know that yes, they're gonna sort of look and feel like the typical zombies.
This is the dog, by the way.
The inspiration for the whole thing.
Yeah.
She's also the fourth part owner of the company. She gets her cut as well.
He's actually the third member of Prometheus too. He's never missed a rehearsal.
Yep.
Perfect.
True
Well,
story.
he missed one rehearsal.
Every recording session.
Yeah, he's been at every recording session for sure. It's not your classic like zombie epidemic story, if that's what you're kind of getting at.
Yeah, it does. The backstory, the origin and the backstory is a little bit different. So the zombies themselves kind of feel like zombies, but there's more to it.
Yeah, so that's sort of where Spike comes in and the crown and stuff. It kind of is sort of the origin of it, and it's a very powerful thing that is basically too powerful for any human to wield, and so we end up with this sort of zombie situation on our hands.
I'm excited. I'm excited for people to sort of read the book and kind of get a better idea and sort of what we might do after with this stuff. So, I genuinely think that should be enough to sort of whet people's appetites for sure.
Yeah.
Moving back to the figures themselves, which is sort of the origin for all of this, for the soundtrack, for the comic book, and everything. You mentioned, Arlen, that sort of iconic, just almost like, and we were talking about this, a while ago, that we couldn't think of like, oh, it's from this movie or this comic book or whatever. It's like, but that idea of like a skull floating in, a skull in a smashed, astronaut suit, just floating in space, that sort of helplessness, that the almost despair of that imagery is sort of what started this. But then as you went deeper, how did you pick how did you decide on the factions? How did you pick the colors? What was sort of the process that got to where we are effectively now?
Well, it was a lot of like redoing it, changing, redoing it, setting it one way, decided that doesn't work, going a different way. Part of it is I was trying to figure out how to get almost different characters out of the body. So like you have the astronaut suit, and what's the best way to do that is choose different colors. I went green, obviously, for military. It's pretty classic.
Yeah.
Blue was kind of like science. I was thinking almost like Earth. It was like,
okay,
yeah, like water blue. That's where that came from. Medical was white because it's,
again, makes sense.
Yeah. And engineer was orange because you always think of, I don't know, just, someone almost like a bright color for, if they're working on something or fixing something or doing anything.
High vis.
Like a high vis kind of color.
Essentially.
Sure.
Yeah. And then red, villain.
And now Arlen's frozen.
Yeah, totally frozen.
No, but that the red, I mean, again, we've talked about this, that sort of classic villain. Like you see a dude in a red and black suit and you're like, oh, that's the bad guy. Like it's pretty easy, right? So Hey, you're back.
I don't know my internet. Hey, my internet went down, so I'm just using the
Oh.
Wi-Fi through or my phone. I don't know.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, we've
super.
only got a couple
So
more
my
things to talk about here, but we did you want to finish on Spike Spectre? How did you come up
okay.
with the red?
No, I think I got it with the villain. That's basically where
Okay.
it came from. Classic
You froze. We sort of picked
retro.
up where you left off. Somebody,
I don't know.
you know,
I lost
kind of.
the. Okay.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. Now, I want to know which characters are your favorites. Who wants to go first? Ira, you want to go first?
Sure. Georgia McBride is by far my favorite character. She just seems like such a fun person to hang around.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the comics, like in the album, we didn't make characters. The characters aren't part of the record. The record is a little bit of a sort of I mean, it's art, like it's esoteric. It's not so definitive, but when we got down to writing the comic book, some of these characters came out in my mind, and Georgia just she's a really cool person. She does a lot of crazy stuff. She's a wild character, and she ends up being a real hero in the end. So
No spoilers.
no spoilers. She's a hero.
I saw a lot of people specifically point out the ukulele that comes with Georgia, which I thought was really cool. And again, people were like, "Well, yeah, if you're going to space, you don't have room for a guitar. So what's the next best option? You
Totally.
take ukulele."
Totally.
Ukulele.
Arlen, what's your favorite figure?
Spike. He was the most fun to design. I went through a lot of different design elements on his head sculpt. He had like mustache. He had like a more retro hood. I was trying to go for like super evil, like classic villain, and I kind of just settled on kind of like a narrower, pointier features, which kind of gives him that more evil look. And just the retro. I don't know. Aesthetically, I just think he's fun.
Yeah, he is absolutely. And I'll be honest, like he would have been my favorite had you not picked them. But for the sake of having 3 different pictures, I actually went with Dr. Michael Locke.
Nice.
The white astronaut to me is like that's the iconic astronaut. So medical or not, I think white is for me kind of just the coolest one. If somebody's just going to get a couple astronauts to sort of put into a display or into their collection, I don't know what they're going to pick, and I'm not trying to tell anybody what to pick. But I mean, if you just want an astronaut, I think this one's probably a pretty good option. Anyways, that's more or less all I had. I mean, that we just wanted to sort of like have this sort of like hang out and get to know everybody session. And so my last question is pretty straightforward. On a scale of not at all infected to rabidly consuming human flesh, how excited are you guys that we're launching the Kickstarter in like 2 weeks?
I'm rapidly consuming human flesh right now.
Yeah, same.
It's a good thing you guys are in
blood on the chin,
buildings.
just like exactly.
Drooling.
Bumping into walls.
Yeah.
So excited.
And as I said, just a couple little details to really sort of pin down and stuff like that. But the Kickstarter's ready to go. We're ready to go. The designs have been ready for quite a while. And it's just taken us, a little bit of time to sort of get the business behind the scenes all lined up and all sort of, done in a way that we were able to launch. So stay tuned. I will have tons more on this channel, talking about space zombies pretty much all the time anyway. But we're going to be doing videos on a whole bunch of other channels. Stay tuned for that. We'll post those on the Instagram. With the Instagram page, I will put that in the description down below as well. Thanks, guys. It's going to be exciting, and I hope people are ready for this, because it's going to come fast and it's going to be pretty exciting. So,
Oh yeah.
all right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
All right. Peace.
Bye bye.